When committing a robbery, every split second counts. Thieves can be incredibly sophisticated and sometimes pull off million-dollar robberies within the blink of an eye. Taking a whistle-stop tour of famous heists around the globe, here are some of the fastest thefts in history. Our first stop is in Dubai, in a brazen heist that took them only 170 seconds. What you'll find with most robberies on the list is that the most high-profile thefts involve jewelry. To rob a bank, there are various barriers and security measures put in place to stop someone from accessing their cash. With jewelry stores, you simply need to go into the store, smash the glass, take the expensive jewels inside, and run for the hills. In 2007, shoppers at Wafi Mall in Dubai witnessed something from a Hollywood movie, and the chain of events could only be fully understood when looking back at the CCTV cameras. One car drives through the glass window of the mall, while another vehicle follows. The cars move inside the mall towards a jewelry store. One car stops, and a man with a gun comes out and checks the surroundings. The other car then barges into the door of a Graf jewelry store, carrying a gun and a hammer. The man smashes all of the glass casings and helps himself to some highly expensive jewelry. He was carrying what turned out to be fake jewelry, used as a way to scare people off and ensure nobody tried to make themselves a hero. The thieves drove down Zatterbill Road, where they burned down the two brand new Audi cars they had just stolen in order to destroy any evidence. This heist, along with others on this list, is believed to be perpetrated by a gang of jewelry thieves known as the Pink Panthers, named after the Pink Panther comedy and crime movie series. While they are incredibly effective jewelry thieves, they are much more bloody and ruthless than those portrayed in the movies. Let's just say that there's nothing to laugh at when these guys are at work. When they orchestrated their heist in Dubai, the thieves tried to flee the country. Luckily, Dubai police captured two suspects before they could make their way across the border, as well as the two stolen Audis. The group had rented a modest Nissan Sunny for their getaway, and the Emirati police found the jewelry in this car. It wasn't until 2014 that a third suspect was found. He was arrested by the Spanish authorities and then handed over to the UAE in 2015. To rub further salt in their wounds, the heist car is now on display at the Dubai Police Museum to reflect the police's ingenious work in cracking the case. But despite the speedy cars, raids and getaways, this is the slowest theft on our list. Here's where things get a bit faster. London. Our next heist takes us to merry old England, and funnily enough, to another Graf diamond store on New Bond Street. At 4:40 p.m, two men dressed in suits walked in, posing as customers. While they did not wear any masks, this is not actually what they looked like before the robbery. They told makeup artists that they were making a music video and needed their appearance completely altered. Once inside, they pulled out handguns and ordered the staff to get down on the floor. Then they forced the shop assistant, Petra Anar, to open the display cabinet. It took them 2 minutes to collect $65 million worth of jewelry. These are some of the 43 jewels taken from the haul, including diamond earrings, necklaces, and rings, with a total value of around £40 million. However, the thieves cannot simply sell these pieces. Experts think they're so recognizable that they would have to be broken up, which would dramatically reduce their value. The gunmen were well aware that the police could be waiting for them, even at this early stage, so they brought Petra Anar as a hostage while they waited for their getaway driver to arrive. Interestingly, they also fired a gunshot to clear the street. In Britain, police do not all carry guns, and only a particular section of them are allowed to use firearms. If an ordinary police officer was walking around, they would simply not be allowed to respond, and instead, he or she would have to wait for the specialist gun force to arrive. This sequence of events points towards an incredibly capable set of criminals. However, their methods of transportation to and from the crime scene suggest otherwise. According to Good Morning America, the heist was so brazen that police say the men arrived at the store in a London taxi and made an incredible getaway, changing cars 3 times over a distance measuring less than half a mile. They crashed once, handed a bag of jewels to an accomplice on a motorcycle, and gave police a slip. Despite being right in the center of London, they traveled from getaway car to getaway car, which helped keep the police off their scent. However, the fact that they were constantly moving from one vehicle to the other led to one of them losing their phone in one of the cars. This was a crucial mistake and led to them being caught by the old bill. 2 men appeared in court today, charged with carrying out Britain's biggest ever jewelry robbery. They're accused of conspiring to rob Graf jewelers on New Bond Street. A third man has been charged in connection with the incident. However, none of the jewelry has been recovered from this heist, and it's unlikely that the criminals will ever divulge this information. Tacoma. Our next heist takes us to Tacoma, Washington, in what was one of the fastest bank robberies of all time. At one point, the criminal I'm about to discuss was an American hero. Luke Elliott Summer served time in the US Army, but in a strange twist of fate, he ended up using his military training to hold up a bank. Summer grew up in British Columbia, Canada, but holds dual citizenship with Canada and the US. He joined the US Army when he was just 17 in 2003, the very year that America led its invasion of Iraq. A year later, Summer spent time in Baghdad, and in 2005 he spent time in Afghanistan. When returning to America, he recruited people to join his training camp. On August 7, 2006, 4 men charged into a Tacoma branch of Bank of America carrying weapons. It was organized to every last detail. 2 of the men were holding handguns and were responsible for getting hold of the money. The other 2 carried AK-47s and guarded the bank from outside. They all wore body armor too and carried plenty of ammunition with them. Summer was one of the men with a handgun leading the charge. A prosecutor of the case said if the police arrived, Luke Summer planned to go to war. The robbers were armed for combat. Summer continued shouting orders at the tellers to hand over the money, while one of the men guarding the entrance shouted out how much time had elapsed. Summer reordered the tellers to give him $20, $50, and $100 bills and told them not to give any money with serial numbers or die packs that would be traceable. His assistant collected the money, and when it hit the 2-minute mark, the team's timekeeper shouted, "Let's go," and they fled the scene. They exited the bank with $54,000, taking them 2 minutes and 21 seconds. The gang used military precision in this robbery, but it was one fatal flaw that led to them being caught. 3 days later, when they took off in their getaway vehicle, a bystander took down their license plate and handed it over to the police. The bandits forgot to get rid of this license plate, and it was traced back to the car of one of the gunmen. While the thieves I spoke about earlier remained extremely tight-lipped when caught by the police, this guy was a lot more cooperative. He spilled the beans on everything that happened, leaving Summer and the rest of the team in hot water too. The bystander who foiled this plan may have prevented more than just one robbery. According to CTV News, Summer, then 20 years old, planned to use the proceeds of the robbery to start a criminal gang in BC who would rival the Hells Angels. Summer was sentenced to prison, but it's still not the end of this story. In 2008, he tried to hire a hitman to kill the attorney, who got him convicted and specifically requested to make it look like murder, not an accident. Thankfully, the hitman he hired was an FBI informant, which slapped another 20 years onto his sentence for good measure. Hong Kong. Our next robbery takes us across to the Far East in Hong Kong, where $3 million worth of jewelry was taken in 90 seconds in the popular Tsim Shat Tsui shopping district. A high-end store named VIP Watch and Jewelry was the unfortunate target for ruthless thieves. In July 2018, 3 masked men confidently charged inside at 10:45 a.m. The glass was smashed and many luxury watches were taken and placed into a bag. They took 34 Swiss-made luxury watches and 39 American-made bracelets with a total estimated value of 23.5 million Hong Kong dollars, which is equivalent to $3 million US dollars. No guns were seen at the scene of the crime. The culprits were simply armed with a knife and a retractable baton. Sadly, a male employee was injured badly by the baton and had to be taken to hospital after the robbery. He was speaking on his mobile phone when the robbers came in and may have said something to alert the other person on the phone that he was in danger. A source told the South China Morning Post it appeared the employee was beaten because the gang thought he tried to make a phone call. Customers and other staff were threatened with a knife, but whether the police were tipped off or not, this might not have made much of a difference. The thieves came and went in the space of 90 seconds. As quick as a flash, the robbers fled the scene onto the nearby Lock Road, where their getaway vehicle awaited. Superintendent Wang Chi said, "From our preliminary investigations, this getaway car is believed to have stolen the Yuen Long district in March. The fact that this car was stolen months before the heist tells you just how much planning and preparation went into this 1.5-minute job." Another vehicle was found on fire and is believed to be linked to the case. The police believe that the bandits handed over the jewelry to someone else while switching getaway cars and afterward made their way into mainland China. 2 of the men are believed to be Chinese and could speak fluent Cantonese. The other robber was of South Asian descent. Arrests were made weeks after the heist. All 3 men were believed to be caught by police, and a girlfriend of one of the men also turned herself in for her involvement too. However, the stolen goods have not been recovered. Paris. Our next robbery happened in Paris, the city of love. The Pink Panthers were very active in this city, and some even allege that they were involved in the high-profile robbery of Kim Kardashian. Instead of robbing a jewelry store, sometimes it is easier to simply mug an individual carrying expensive belongings. In 2014, thieves decided to put this to the test and rob a Saudi prince. On a quiet Sunday evening at around 5 p.m., Prince Abdul Aziz bin Fahd left the Four Seasons Gorge V, one of the most expensive hotels in all of Paris. A premier room at this place will cost you nearly $2,200 a night. Having checked out, the Saudi prince was on his way to take his private plane at Le Bourget airport, but would be interrupted along the way. As a royal family member, he did not travel alone and traveled in a convoy alongside security guards and aides. The lead car was a Mercedes van, which had some of its aides inside. However, this level of security did not seem to be enough. 8 masked men driving BMWs swooped in and hijacked the Mercedes van without firing any shots. They made off with a briefcase. This Saudi prince had a briefcase stuffed with 250,000 euros in cash, which is about $335,000. As well as cash, they also took luxury watches and secret documents. Denny Fourier, a spokesperson for the prosecutor's office in Paris, told news outlets the assailants blocked a car with two vehicles and asked the occupiers to get out of the car. Then they took the car and drove away. It took them a few dozen seconds to do that. So although there is no exact stamp on this heist, the thieves did manage to snatch over $300,000 in the space of seconds. There are many suspicious aspects of this crime. Firstly, how did they know that the Saudi prince was carrying a suitcase full of cash? And secondly, how did they manage to know the exact route that he would be taking from his hotel to the airport? Fourier said it was led by criminals who seemed to know that there was money to steal and eventually knew in which car they would find it. When we hear that somebody is being robbed of their possessions, our first instinct is to feel sympathetic toward them. However, the French public were not exactly shedding tears for this Saudi prince who found himself short of $200,000 to $150,000. The prince had just finished a 2-month vacation in Paris and was known for leading a lush and lavish lifestyle. An article in Le Monde contained comments such as, "The prince lost his day's pocket change," and another person wrote, "3 little minutes of production from the oil wells, tax included." Nonetheless, the French authorities took this incredibly seriously, and a year later, 9 men were arrested in connection with the heist. The convicts had been linked with the Pink Panthers, and the fact that the theft was done so quickly and professionally certainly points to this. New Jersey. In New Jersey, we have not only one of the fastest robberies ever committed, but one of the biggest teams involved too. Varani Jewelers, a jewelry store in New Jersey, found itself suddenly swarmed by a total of 8 gunmen. One of the thieves appears to point a gun at a man near the entrance, while another took out a hammer and started smashing the glass. The robbery happened at 7:45 p.m., which was minutes before the store was about to close. The thinking behind this may have been that there would have been very few customers in the store at this point, and the workers may have also been caught off guard, having spent the whole day at work. However, this happened in June 2022, so it was still broad daylight at that hour. In just 1 minute, 8 of the thieves ran in, smashed the glass, and stashed the jewelry in their bags. It's clear that these people knew what they were doing and did not hang around for long. They took what's believed to be $1 million worth of jewelry. Little India specializes in Indian jewelry and is a popular shopping district for the South Asian community, not just in New Jersey but most of the East Coast. According to Fox News, the region attracts South Asian customers from Maine to Maryland. There are at least 10 to 15 other jewelry stores in the area, so it's a mystery why they chose this store and not the others. Local woman, Miss Bar Chowdhury, witnessed the crime and said how comfortable and confident they were. They came in like they owned the store. They're like, "All right, everybody down," breaking stuff, filling up their bags, walking away like they had no worries in the world. Thankfully, the only damage caused was to property at the store. No serious injuries were reported. Some of the business owners tell me tonight they plan to get together and meet with the mayor come Thursday, Brittany, to talk about safety. This robbery happened over a year ago, and there have been no further updates on who the culprits are and where the $1 million of jewelry has gone. It is not understood which gang or operation they were involved with, but this seemed like a very professional job. Tokyo. The next robbery occurred in the city of Tokyo, a place that was at one stage home to the contest of London, which is one of the most expensive necklaces in the world. The jewelry piece is composed of 116 diamonds, including a centerpiece 125-carat diamond, and is believed to be worth $31 million. But since 2004, nobody knows where this thing is. On March 5, 2004, the Tokyo jewelry boutique La Supra di Mon Courtois de Maki had some unexpected visitors. According to police reports, the robbery involved 2 men and 2 women. The men were expected to carry out the heist while the women were on the lookout. Dowd visited the boutique many times and posed as an eager customer. He was even shown the contest de London by one of the staff who believed that they could have their biggest ever sale coming soon at the store. Dowd returned another day at 11:46 a.m. Except this time, he was accompanied by his friend Alexander Radulovich. Radulovich had a pen and paper and looked to be writing something down. Meanwhile, Rusovich broke the glass containing the Countess de London and snatched it for himself. Then both men ran out of the store and fled on motorcycles. The whole thing lasted less than 40 seconds. All 4 of them stayed at a hotel in Tokyo for a night before fleeing the country under fake Croatian and Czech passports the next day. They boarded a plane for Paris and were thousands of miles away from the scene of the crime. The Japanese put all of their resources into finding the culprits to the extent that they had 100 investigators working on it. 2 years later, 2 Serbian men were jailed in connection to the robbery. However, they refused to let the police know where the necklace is hidden. and who they were working for. Rusovich even testified that it was an inside job, and it was used to collect $100,000 worth of insurance money, something the authorities have refused to believe. One of the most surprising aspects of the crime is one of the women involved. Since the heist, Dorothy Fasola has been living in Scotland and working as a fish trader in Aberdeen. She was known as a Fiat-driving seafood exporter who drove a hard bargain. On the other side of the world, she's believed to be the mastermind of one of the greatest robberies to ever take place in Japan. She was seen looking through jewelry shops in Tokyo days before the heist, and a Serbian prosecutor said Serbian members of the gang were in charge of the dirty jobs. The real person behind the whole operation was Fasola. She wasn't very good at covering her tracks. It was only thanks to security cameras that Japanese police have been able to trace her. Fasola was extradited to Italy for a different robbery but released in 2011. Ultimately, the necklace has never been seen since, and it's unlikely that it is still out there. While these thieves were in Tokyo, they used their hotel cell phone to make calls to Sri Lanka, and people suspect that the necklace was sold through the black market. By now, it's more than likely that the precious diamonds on this necklace were recut and resold. Brooklyn. At a high-end jewelry store in Brooklyn, $2 million worth of jewelry was taken in 38 seconds. At 5 p.m., three masked gunmen raided Facet's jewelry in Park Slope, Brooklyn. They threatened to shoot a worker while smashing the cases and looting the place of its expensive jewelry. According to the store owner, Irina Sule, the guy reaches into his pocket and pulls out a hammer. "I didn't even understand how a hammer could fit in there." And he says, "And this is how you use a hammer." He smashes three of our main displays. Each of the three men had their own specific job. One man worked with a hammer while another had a bag filled with jewelry. The third person, meanwhile, operated as a lookout. Soleil says the whole thing lasted 38 seconds. They took 2.5 full cases of diamond engagement rings, newer pieces we've designed in-house, and pieces we've collected, Art Deco and Edwardian rings. But obviously, it was less about the jewelry they were taking, and more about the danger she and her staff found themselves in. Honestly, it's very scary. I couldn't even talk yesterday. I was hyperventilating, crying, sobbing and shaking. Of course, they had put plenty of preparation into the heist. They knew exactly what cases to take from. They only took the big-ticket items. The guy holding the door yelled, "What are you doing? Don't move. I'm gonna shoot." And that's when I was like, okay, I'm not looking at him, I'm looking down, Soleil said. Luckily though, nobody was physically harmed during the robbery. Soleil says the whole thing seemed to be incredibly organized, and it looked like the robbers had their escape vehicle ready to go when they fled the scene. After grabbing the jewels, they bolted to a waiting car, and one of them actually dropped some jewelry during the escape. Despite losing some of their loot, it was an incredibly lucrative heist. The jewels were worth at least $2 million, and it was clearly not a random attack. Soleil believes that they were targeted because the thieves knew that they had 2 cases filled with engagement rings. The Park Slope is known for having many of its diamond districts, but this gang targeted them and left the rest of the street alone. A few days after the heist, a car was found burnt out not too far away from the store. However, the robbers have not been found, and the stolen jewels remain unaccounted for. There is a pretty good chance that the diamonds were recut and have since been resold. Los Angeles. To Los Angeles, where we have the fastest heist on our list. It takes a particular type of person to organize the theft of 2 armed vans and get away with over $10 million in 17 seconds. It is believed that the one who pulled this off was Alex Hayden. This heist would eventually see Hayden jailed, but not before he stole over $60 million from around 10 armored vans in a series of 10 jobs. If you want to see more of this, a brilliant documentary about it is available on Netflix. In the heist that I'm going to discuss, which is the last one, Hayden is believed to have stolen over $10 million in just 17 seconds. The time that it took for the robbers to steal the money was so short that the authorities did not even have time enough to reach the van and stop them. For those of you who think that this can't be real, here's a clip from the security footage of one of the heists. In August 1997, the LAPD received a tip-off that 2 guards at the Dunbar Armored Facility had been talking about a potential robbery. The officers made an arrest of 2 men, but the charges were eventually dropped and the robbers went free. They'd simply hired a lawyer who helped them keep their mouths shut. In fact, the trial cost them $1 million, which they just happened to have in cash. The men who were arrested were responsible for loading the money into the vans. Hayden, who was only 23 at the time of the first robbery, drove the getaway vehicle. The crew they formed would meet in Las Vegas after the thefts, which was believed to be Hayden's brainchild. There they would rent out several hotel suites and start to enjoy their ill-gotten gains. They'd eat out in fancy restaurants, visit strip clubs, nightclubs and gamble, but by far the most absurd thing they did was engage in a massive shopping spree. One of the guys involved in the heist, named Randy Adair, said, "We just do stupid stuff, like we went into a sporting goods store and bought every damn color of a hockey jersey. In the end, we had $200,000 worth of hockey jerseys that we couldn't sell." Eventually, after the spree, Adair started to realize that something wasn't quite right. With all this money, why was he still living in Las Vegas? He decided to turn himself in, saying, "Hey, I gotta tell you about something. I don't feel good about myself, and I don't feel good about this anymore. I know where $20 million is, and it's stolen money." The robbery that Adair was involved in happened on September 12, 1996, at the Dunbar facility in Los Angeles. On that night, an armored van went into the Dunbar depot to pick up $18.9 million in cash from the vault. Then, the van drove off. The guards inside the van believed that they were going to be doing a money run to various banks around the city. But no, there was no schedule or plan, and the armored vehicle stopped at a secret location. When it came to a halt, the lights were turned off, and then it all went pitch black. When the guards turned around to see what was going on, they were suddenly doused with gallons of mace. The thieves had created a bomb that covered the entire van. It took 55 minutes for the thieves to remove the 2,240 bags of cash from the van. Hayden had acted as the crew's driver and was awaiting with a rented U-Haul truck. He had it loaded with the stolen money and sped off with his criminal associates in tow. They drove off into the desert and split the money evenly among themselves. Then they each had around $5 million to enjoy. In his confession, Adair said that after the robbery, "I got mine, I was happy. I got $2.8 million cash. I went home, and after you spend that much money, you start buying everything you ever wanted." The driver of the armored vehicle, Alan Pace, even went so far as to have a Batmobile made for himself. He paid $75,000 for the thing and ended up having a hologram of Batman on the back of it. They spent their money quickly and recklessly. After finding out the feds were onto them, they tried to destroy all evidence. Hayden bought a wood chipper and started to shred documents, but the evidence was so damning that it couldn't be destroyed in time. It was later discovered that the thieves had bought their goods with money that still had the original bank straps and even the teller's writing on them. Eventually, the gang went their separate ways and they each decided to do their own thing. Adair decided to confess to his crimes and show authorities where the money was hidden. This was after Hayden became increasingly paranoid as he knew that the feds were onto him. He decided to kill Pace, who was believed to have stolen some of the money for himself. This was because Pace was living the high life while the rest of the gang members were lying low. He was driving around in a Cadillac buying houses and even showed up to a funeral in a new suit. On the evening of December 15th, 1997, Hayden arranged to meet Pace and shot him dead. He was able to get him to come out of his apartment and met him in a parking lot. When he did, he pulled out a gun and shot Pace in the chest. He was shot again in the head and left in the parking lot. Adair later said, "I could hear the shots. I heard him die." Hayden then made off with around $1 million that was still hidden in a backpack in the car. In the end, Pace's death was pointless. His wife inherited $5 million in life insurance, but his children were orphaned. His wife squandered the insurance money and later ended up in prison for robbery. She lost her house and the life insurance went down the drain. In total, the gang stole around $60 million. However, after they spent their money, the stolen funds dried up and they eventually ended up living on the streets. The money they stole was not small amounts, so many people were not sure what had happened to them. Hayden had some run-ins with the law and was not jailed until 2009. This is when he got caught trying to rob the Bellagio, a casino in Las Vegas. It is not known what happened to the rest of the gang members, but Adair and some of the others were questioned and released. The case has gone cold and the rest of the money is still unaccounted for. Nevertheless, Hayden's story is pretty well known, and he even appeared on the cover of Time magazine in 2003. It's believed that he stole around $40 million in total. He was the mastermind behind these high-stake robberies, and it took authorities years to bring him down. He knew that he was always being watched, and he made it as difficult as possible for the feds to catch him. Eventually, he was arrested, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He was released in 2016, but in 2018, he was arrested again for violating his parole. These lightning-fast heists demonstrate the audacity and precision of some criminals when it comes to pulling off high-stakes robberies. However, it's important to remember that crime doesn't pay in the long run, and the vast majority of these criminals end up facing serious consequences for their actions, whether through arrest, imprisonment, or even violence among themselves.